Hello, and welcome to the From the Shadows podcast. I am the producer, Jason Lewis. I would like to thank you for tuning in to the From the Shadows podcast. And without further ado, here is your host, Shane Grove.
Hey, this is Shane Grove, the host of From the Shadows podcast. And before we get into this week's episode with author Mark Muncy, and it is a great episode, I want to give a quick update on Cameron Jones. Not necessarily the last episode that we had Cameron on, when he was talking about the hauntings and the paranormal stuff going on in his house and how he kept a journal. He happened to send me the last 3 passages in his journal, and I thought I'd share them with everybody. So it says, July 6th, walking past the stairs, I saw a dark figure at the top, turned around, looked again, and there was nothing. July 15th, I again saw the figure at the top of the stairs. Then on July 29th, I was walking up the stairs. At the top, I heard a loud rasping. It lasted approximately 15 seconds. It was like a mixture between someone with lung cancer trying to breathe and or vomiting. It was horrible. I searched the house, particularly the upstairs. There was no explanation for the sound. That in and of itself would be enough to make me leave the house. The mixture of someone with lung cancer trying to breathe and or vomiting. I mean, that would just be so unnerving. My hat's off to Cameron for really paying attention to what's going on and detailing it. And he, as he mentioned in his episode, if you haven't heard it, that has really helped him go back and kind of see how many things really have happened, and some things that have just, kind of slipped his mind, because it just has become so common. So for everybody out there that is experiencing a haunting or some paranormal activity, I mean, that's the one of the things I would take from Cameron's episodes is start detailing it. Writing down the stuff that you're experiencing so that you have a log of it, and maybe you can start seeing a correlation between certain days and times and certain events. I mean, that's what research is kind of, doing a study of all the facts. So yeah, I'm just thanks Cameron for sending us that little update, and I'm sure everybody that has heard that episode or can go back and hear that episode will appreciate that extra information. So, but as I said, our episode that you're tuning in for is the first part of our conversation with author Mark Muncy. And as good as the first part of the episode is, next week's episode is gonna blow some minds. So I don't want to downplay this week's episode because it's really cool. A lot of cool stories. It's very interesting and entertaining, but next week's will be even more amazing. And I just don't say that lightly. So before we let you go, I just want to remind everybody, thanks for sharing, subscribing, commenting, liking all of our different social media avenues that you can travel down. Our downloads keep going up. We don't understand exactly why. We don't know what's any different. But I hope it's word of mouth through all of our loyal listeners, just telling their friends, sharing it on their different pages, their different, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. We just appreciate it. And it's super, super important to get our program out in the view of everybody. And the more we grow, the the better I think we get. So I don't want to pat ourselves on the back or anything, but I think it's really important. I mean, the bigger we grow, we kind of feel like, hey, we got to keep stepping our game up, because there's people outside of North Central Ohio listening to us. So we appreciate all the support, and we got some really cool messages after last week with people suggesting different stories for us to check out, and we're already working on it. So keep messaging us on our After the Shadows Facebook forum page, through our Instagram page, wherever you can get a hold of us, or get a hold of me directly. There is a lot of cool stuff out there. And like I said, we had a couple of and I know they're loyal listeners, because they are always, sending comments and different little notes and stuff. So I know they're loyal listeners, and so I appreciate the fact that they are, and we're going to follow some of their suggestions and try to do a couple stories that I think everybody will dig. So, and that's the cool thing, is we've got a cool little community, and we just want to keep growing it. So thanks again, and stay tuned for the first part of Mark Muncy. You won't be disappointed.
Hey everybody, it's Shane Grove, the host of From the Shadows podcast. This beautiful rainy Sunday morning that we're recording this in the great state of Ohio. Joining me this morning are the super producer, Jason. What's up, Jason?
Greetings, everybody.
And blessing us, and I do mean blessing us with his presence, is the judge this morning. How's it going, Judge?
Good morning.
That's it? I mean,
it's well.
For the...
well.
I mean, seriously? Holy moly.
And the judge is smart enough to recognize sarcasm when he hears it. So.
Oh, okay. Well, then everybody in Crawford County, you can feel that much better when you get arrested. Hey,
trust me.
Go before him. Your sarcasm will not be lost. So.
No, I'll pick it up.
So our guest today is a very prolific author of stuff that we love to talk about, and we'll just go ahead and introduce him, and then we'll get started, because he's the guy with all the good stuff. We don't, as you can tell by that little interaction, me, Jason, and the judge really don't have anything good. So with us today is Mark Muncy, author of, I'll just give a couple of them: Eerie Florida, Freaky Florida, and Creepy Florida. Mark, thanks for joining us this morning.
Oh, it is an honor and a privilege, gentlemen. So thanks for having me.
I think the honor's ours, because anybody that can put together a book series that sounds like it was a Disney kids series, movie series from back in the 50s or so. Like, I'm waiting for Son of Creepy Florida, or what I'm saying.
It's so funny. That's how we pitched it to the publisher, and back in the day, and they were like, "Oh, we don't really do sequels." When we did Eerie Florida, because I originally pitched it as this big, it was going to be, 500 pages, and it was going to have tons of stories and all this stuff. And they're like, "All right, well, we don't really do that. Scale it down to make like a top 20." And we wound up making it like 25 stories. And then it wasn't even really a top. It was just the ones we knew that people would like to read about. And then as soon as that hit bestseller list, they suddenly came back to us and was like, "Hey, remember how you said you had all those other stories?" Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, well, sometimes you got to show them what you got, before.
Yeah, our publisher's History Press, and they normally do like the little Battle of Alusty, the history of, Fort Sumter and stuff like that. And they'd done some spooky books and they'd had some success, which is why they approached us. But they had no idea, that it could explode like it did. And now they're writing Eries all over the place, and they got writers all over trying to do them. So.
Yeah, because isn't like the Eerie? I mean, that's something that is done in a lot of states, right? I think there might be an Eerie, Ohio, and an Eerie.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
There is now.
So that's your fault, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, a little bit.
You could take all the credit.
You know what I find interesting about a publishing company that their main focus was on nonfiction, is that they're now, getting these kind of stories, because I think that the general population is accepting now ghost stories, paranormal stories, crypt stories as nonfiction. So you're taking history and blending it.
Yeah, they realized that folklore has a historical basis, and that's what they're taking it as. Now, what we, are still taking it as is, this is stuff we don't understand yet. So there is historical documentation of this stuff, and so that's what we get in. We get into some of it is where does it come from, why is this legend this way, but then some of it is people have been seeing something weird for, 50, 100, 50, 200 years, it's got to be something, so that's, so depending on which way the story takes us is how we go.
Well, I mean,
Go ahead, Grover.
Florida itself, wasn't that basically founded or settled because people were searching for the fountain of youth anyway? So you talk about one of the greatest folklores of all time. That is probably responsible for Florida being settled by Europeans as early as it was.
Yeah, I mean, the Spanish came here definitely in search of the lost cities of gold that they found a couple of down in South America. So obviously there's got to be more up here. And then they'd also heard legends of the Fountain of Youth up here and all that. And then we've got a lot of folklore stories about them finding some unusual things and the consequences. One of my favorites is Tomoka State Park. It's named after Chief Tomoki, and he the Spanish came in and went to him and said, "Hey, we're looking for this fountain that will grant us immortality and stuff." And he's like, "Well, there is a fountain." He's trying to impress the Spanish. He hasn't heard tales of them slaughtering everybody who don't help them. He's like, "I'm going to impress them because we do have a fountain. And if you go there and you drink from this special cup, it does make you impervious to harm in battle. And that's how my tribe is as strong as it is." So he shows them this. And then he kind of realizes his mistake a little too late. And so the Spanish start overwhelming him. He drinks from the cup. Now his shaman is upset because, hey, you have to do the ceremonies. You have to do it at the right time. You have to do all this. And so what happens is he survives his encounter with the Spanish, but then the other tribes gang up on him for showing them this stuff. And the special cup was gold. And so now the Spanish are convinced there's a golden city, so now they're invading like crazy. And so the tribes team up against him, and he turns into some sort of ghost poisonous mist, a pink cloud that devours the flesh of humans and all this stuff. And so his mist rises every couple hundred years, and hunters have seen it, and some other people have seen it. And that was one of the first Native American legends that I had to go to, some Seminole and say, is this, I've heard this legend. Do you guys know this legend? Because that sounds very much like a white man version of a native legend. And sure enough, no, it's a legit legend. And Chief Tomoki is one not to be messed with.
And so that's how the Seminoles passed that legend, probably orally down, right?
Yes.
So
exactly. Because the Seminole, it's not a Seminole tribe legend, but the Seminoles, they were made of former. The way the Seminole tribe is founded was it was made of former other tribes, because so many of the native tribes died out, like the Menorcans and the Timucuans and all that. They're all gone. There's no remnants of them, but the Seminoles inherited theirs, because the Seminoles were all ones that were forced here to Florida, like the Creek and some of the others got forced here, and they formed their own tribe.
So the chief didn't have to worry about the Spanish so much as he did everybody else.
Yeah. The Spanish were the least of his problems at that point. So it just goes to show how they didn't like the outsiders at that point. And then and then you realize, okay, so it's a cautionary tale. Be careful what you show the outsiders. And but then you also go, okay, but then why did 1964 two hunters see this pink cloud near Tomoki Springs, and that ate a deer and ate a dog, and they freaked out and ran, and sure enough, there's the remains of the deer and the dog. There's nothing left but bones, and it was like they melted away.
Oh wow! I mean, it's like everything just left bones.
Yep, and nobody, and they didn't know that legend. So what? So is it a legend that's describing a natural event or a supernatural event?
Well, either way, I hope there's not a natural event that just releases a pink cloud that eats everything down to the bone.
Some type of acidic volcano or something.
Exactly. So.
Yes, because Florida is full of acidic volcanoes.
Yeah, we're known for that. It's,
hurricanes and volcanoes. That sounds like a good country song. Hurricanes and volcanoes.
Well, we've got that one across the state right now, so we're just I'm just getting a nice breeze over here in Tampa Bay. So.
Yeah, I saw that. On the news this morning. You guys maybe, or at least the East Coast, dodged a little bit of a bullet by keeping the worst part of it is staying to the east of the storm center or whatever. So.
Yeah, no, we moved down from I'm originally from Ohio, in case you guys didn't know that, because almost everyone in Florida is originally from somewhere else.
Yes.
But we moved down. My father was a Greyhound bus executive, and when the Skyway Bridge collapse happened down here in St. Petersburg in 1980, my father came down as one of the investigators of it, because at that time it was one of the worst Greyhound bus disasters. And for those that don't know this story, the Skyway Bridge is a bridge that goes over the mouth of Tampa Bay. It's so long it goes through 3 counties. It connects Pinellas County, which is St. Petersburg. It goes over the waters, which are actually Hillsborough County, owns the middle of that because that's Tampa. And then it connects to Manatee County on the other side, Sarasota, Bradenton area. And this bridge makes it so you don't have to drive all the way around through Tampa. So it takes a 3-hour drive and makes it a 45-minute drive to get to Sarasota. And in 1980, this boat called the Summit Venture is coming in to the port. It's a busy port. It's a very narrow lane. It's kind of treacherous, but, it's needed. And it's under the control of the harbor master. And then we had one of these freak thunderstorms that we get that spring up all the time here. And it hits the boat, and it knocks it off course just a little bit. And when it finally clears, they realize they're hitting right for one of the pylons of the bridge. And it's a big 10,000-ton tanker. So there's no stopping this on a dime. And it plows right into this giant high bridge that it's going to sail under. And it knocks it into the water. And cars are driving on that bridge in that foggy, rainy morning. And in one of our freak thunderstorms where you can only see about 4 feet. And they start dropping 200 feet into the Tampa Bay waters, including a full Greyhound.
Oh my.
Yeah. 23 vehicles, 31 deaths, I believe. and a lot of survivors, but not as many as one would hope. One guy survives. He actually lands on the boat in his truck.
Holy moly.
Yeah, it's terrifying, right?
Yes.
So my father comes down to check out the bus that drove off the edge. And sure enough, no survivors on that. And but my dad fell so in love with the sunsets here that we moved there 5 years later. So,
and I went over that bridge, like would you say that was 1980? So I would have probably been 8 or 9. I'd have been like 8 or 9 when I went to Florida the first time with my grandparents, and we went over that bridge. So I remember going over the old bridge, and it was it was like a day that you just described, because it was in December, and it was overcast, and like you felt like you were going up into the clouds, driving up on the bridge. And oh my gosh, yes. And I got to be honest, I don't really remember that ship running into the bridge, but of course back then in 1980, if it didn't get carried, and you're an Ohio guy, so you had like three channels.
Yeah, our 3 channels.
Yeah. My 3 channels from Toledo didn't I don't think covered that.
It didn't cover it.
It went by real quick.
Or you got like a minute with Walter Cronkite at the end of the night, and a bus crashed in Florida, falling off the bridge.
Yeah, exactly.
So what part of Florida are you in right now, Mark?
I'm in St. Petersburg. I'm right in the middle of Tampa Bay. So,
okay. So my dad lived in Seffner, which is right there by Tampa and Clearwater for like 27 years. He passed away. So I'm pretty familiar. I actually have my own Eerie, Florida story that I could tell you, but I probably do one during this podcast.
I would love to hear that. That's the beauty of this is once the first one hit, we got on Coast to Coast AM, and we got on all the rounds. Suddenly, my inbox exploded, and I had started 20 years earlier running a haunted attraction in my backyard for charity. I know they're a lot more common up in Ohio, where everybody makes their backyard into a haunted house or their house into a haunted house. Down here in Florida, the problem is the mouse runs everything. So there's all these zoning laws and codes and everything you have to follow that are 1,000 times as worse as anywhere else. And but we still managed to pull it off every year for charity for 20 years. And then my key was, though, our big hook. We called it Hellview Cemetery. And the big hook was that it was based on the lost cemeteries of Tampa Bay, which basically what happened is people moved down here, all those settlers moved down here, and they would settle into a place. They'd find some nice land. They'd put up their houses. They'd put up a nice little family plot as the settlers would die. And then suddenly one of these freaky storms would move in, or we had our weird blizzards of 94 and 95. Yes, Florida does get snow occasionally. And it, killed all the crops. So then they'd all move away. And then 10 years later, people move back into the town and go, oh, wow, look at all this flat land. Let's just put a house here. Not realizing that they were building over cemeteries and other things. And then in the 50s, when the big Florida land boom, hey, I got some swampland in Florida to sell you. When that all started, everybody started coming down here like crazy. Florida's the health craze. This is the place to go. And St. Petersburg was the land to retire. And, and they had the green benches where everybody could just sit and watch the world go by. And so it, again, more got paved, more got built on. And when they would find stuff, they would just be like, oh, hey, there may be some graves here. Don't worry about it. Just plow it over. And a lot of it, sadly, was like, black cemeteries or, pioneer cemeteries or slave cemeteries. So they just, bury it. Nobody cared. And, we'll move the bodies and we'll pull a poltergeist. Just move the headstone.
I gotta be honest, Mark. You're not making moving the Florida sound very appealing right now.
Oh no, it's like the whole place is built on an Indian burial ground. You know?
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And now I know why you have written 5 books and have 3 more in the works. Because
exactly.
There's all kinds of stuff.
Oh yeah.
So you're running the haunted attraction. Then how does that translate then into you starting? Like, what was the first book out of the 5 that you have? Because am I right? You have 5 published right now.
I actually have more, but most of them I ghost wrote a lot back in the 80s.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a ghost writer. Ooh, no.
How fitting.
Yeah.
How fitting.
Yeah, exactly. Right? How did I know? But no, it was it paid the bills. So it was it paid for my daughter's hospital bill when she was born and all that. So I can't complain. I've actually got about 11 books out, but most of them are under other names. And then we started doing the haunted house, and because I'd worked for Halloween Horror Nights their first couple years, and I worked for a couple other haunted attractions in the area, and then I became a dad, and it was like, well, I can't keep justifying the drive to Orlando, and all that. So they were just little side jobs. They were fun, and I'm like, but hey, we could build one in our backyard. So I got a bunch of friends together, and we built one. We based it on local legends and lore, and that was our big key, was that we, instead of having a werewolf jump out at you, we had the skunk ape jump out at you. Instead of having just some nameless vampire, we had the infamous Madame Orr from a bordello in Tampa that Teddy Roosevelt had burned down. You got to be pretty bad if Teddy Roosevelt burns down your bordello, right? So we based it on, so we based her, we made it from dusk till dawn and made her a vampire, because why else would Teddy Roosevelt burn it down?
That's a great angle. I like that.
Exactly. So we used to call it hellviewing up the legends. We, spice them up, make them, Tales from the Crypt style. And we wrote these stories. We knew most people walking through the house wouldn't notice. It's just some vampire girl jumping out at me. But we wanted the stories told, so we started posting them on our website. And what happened is after a few years of that, kids would come up to us and go, "Oh, hey, I'm so glad you did this story based on the dancing smile, which I've read on Creepypasta." And I'm like, "What's Creepypasta?" Yeah. And another guy came in. It's like, "Oh yeah, I read this story on Reddit and in the No Sleep forum."
I want to know what the creepy smile or the dancing smile is.
Yeah, I'll tell you that one too. Then it's great because so basically what happens is we realized people were copy pasting our stories from the website into these other forums as their stories. And so that's when we're like,
they're stealing from.
We're like, okay, we got to do a book and copyright these things. So that was when we did 31 Tales of Hellview Cemetery with my editor and partner, Elizabeth Abbott. And she's been with me since the beginning on this. And so we put it together. We put a bunch of pictures from the haunt in it, and it did well. We sold it at the haunted house for a couple years, gave the money to charity, and then it kind of took off on its own. And the next year we did the follow-up because people wanted the real stuff. So we did Tales of Terror from Tampa Bay, which was the next year. And that one we tried to put because I thought everybody knew these legends. And so people were like, well, what's the real legend? So that one was a mix. It has a little bit of the real legend and then our version of it. And that's when the publisher started seeking us out. And that was also happened to be perfect timing because that's when the city of St. Pete came to us and said, we got a new mayor in, and the new mayor's like, you guys are too busy. You have to shut down. And so we had to close the haunt.
Wait a second. Now that in itself sounds like a horror story. Why did they just decide you're too busy? You gotta close down.
One of our neighbors finally complained. We'd been doing it for 20 years, and we'd always gotten a permit from the city. Like I said, the old mayor used to bring his family to us, and and the Chamber of Commerce used to come out and all this stuff. And we were theme park level but on a budget of about $12. So, and we were free. So, it was just donate money to charity if you want. And anyway, so the new mayor came in and they were like, nope, can't do it. You're not zoned. And, cause you're residential. It's like, yeah, but it's just for, a week, a year, we just run it for the week of Halloween. Nope. And so we had to tear it down and shut it down. And we've been, unallowed to do it. Our permit has been denied every year since 2015.
Wow, that's a shame.
And you haven't thought about finding another place to go do it, or
that would involve money.
Yes,
and,
increase the expenses. You can't do that. Not be able to donate any money.
The whole point of doing it in the backyard was, hey, I could do it out of my backyard. No, at some point, Hellview may rise. We've kept all the things and all the permits and all the instruction, all the materials. But we'll see. But it's a dancing smile. Let's tell you that story.
Okay, so and what book? So as you tell some of these stories for our listeners, tell them what let's tell them what book that these may be in, so they can go. Because the whole point of this is to introduce our listeners to you, your books, and your stories, because our fan base is some of the most intelligent there is. I'm just going to put it out there.
Absolutely.
Very nice.
And that's just because me, Jason, and the judge listen back to the episodes.
Very highbrow stuff.
So they're damn handsome too, man. That's crazy. So
that's why we can't even do this on Skype video, because it would just create such a stir.
Oh, it would just you'd crash the servers.
Yeah, you think they came down on you in your backyard? Imagine if we put it we'd be banned from everywhere.
Yeah. All right. So this one is from the town. It's Florida. Let's get one thing straight. Florida loves to name things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Florida has this great talent for naming things. So there's this town. It's on the Gulf, and it's a port. So Florida creatively calls it Gulfport, right?
Oh, all right.
Pretty original.
Amazing, right?
Yeah.
And that's how Florida names a lot of their stuff. We have we have a monster up in Barton is like a Sasquatch, but he carries a cane or a walking stick and a lantern, and he's not the Beast of Barton. He's not the Barton monster. No, he's the Barton booger. Yeah, Florida loves to name things.
How much of a beast could you really be if you're walking with a cane? I mean,
that's true. That's true. Scares people off of horses.
But I want to point out though how uncreative we are here in Ohio. You being an Ohio native, that we have Sandusky, where Cedar Point is, but below it is Upper Sandusky. South of Sandusky is Upper Sandusky, which makes no sense.
Oh yeah.
So
Florida has so many. It's just like that. It's crazy. But anyway, so Gulfport is near here, near Tampa Bay area, and it had what they called the electric pier. It went out into a little bit of this landlocked bay just outside of the Gulf, and it was a pier, and it had electricity, so it was called the electric pier.
Another genius name. Oh my god!
Ingenious, right? That's just marketing 101, man. Tell it what it is.
So if you told me you need to go to Gulfport and find the electric pier, I probably could do it without a map.
Yeah, you probably could back then, especially back then. And then, now they had out on this pier, they had what they called a casino. Now, when we think of casino, we think Vegas, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, this is where the naming gets a little more. This is more the traditional Italian casino gathering place. It had a shop on the bottom floor, and then up top, it had a dance studio. and you could hang out there, and they held weddings up on that studio. They did a lot of crazy things out on it. It was just a nice place to have events and things like that. And you could just sit there and wait for the ferry that would come and take you out to Egmont Key and some of the other islands out there in the bay and in the Gulf. So you would go out there and do that. Now, what happened was a hurricane comes through and wipes it out. Wipes out the electric pier, wipes out the casino, wipes out everything. 1917. So they move the casino and rebuild it, but this time they build it on the shore, so it's not going to get destroyed this time. And it's still there, the Gulfport Casino, but they build another pier next to it that goes out into the water, so you can go fishing and you can watch the sunsets, because, hey, it's water. It's what Florida does. But what happens is that while you're there in the morning, if you look out, just as the sun comes up, you look out over the water, you see a guy dancing like a ballroom dancer in like a suit, 10 feet up in the air above the water, or 20 feet sometimes. So like where he would have been on that second floor of that dancing studio, and just dancing with an invisible partner. And he's always got a big smile on his face. Or some versions of the legends, you never see his face because he's always got his back to you. And he just fades away into the morning sun. So creepy story, right? And witnesses for now nearly 100 years have seen this guy. And all ages, shapes, sizes of people have seen this thing. So I wrote the story in 31 Tales of Hellview because we had him in our haunt as a smiling Joker-looking guy who would dance and just dance. He'd dance under the streetlight, and then he would come at you, when you got too close. And so I wrote this story about him, some guy walking along the streets late at night and seeing this guy just dancing, and then it attacking him. And that became Dancing Smile. And that apparently Creepypasta took that and ran with it. And now there's videos of this guy that have like 2 million views of this story that people have reenacted.
Holy smokes. Holy smokes.
And I'm like, oh, man.
So, like, how many of these, so have you ever gone, so do you do investigation? Because we've talked back and forth a little bit. So how many of these stories do you go out and actually investigate yourself to try to lend some credibility to the stories, or do you just rely on like the eyewitness testimony and stuff like that?
Well, we are, how do we refer to ourselves? There was one person called us a paranormal journalist, which I really liked, because we don't run our own investigations, but we go with investigators on investigations. So like we go on ghost hunts, we go on UFO expeditions, we go on Bigfoot hunts or skunk ape hunts down here as they're called because they stink. Again, Florida names things. It's a big hairy thing and it stinks. Let's call it the skunk ape. Yeah.
Of course. Of course.
Yeah, exactly. Right. We love the name. But then we also go to every location in our books. We've traveled over 20,000 miles and haven't left the state in a while. Each book's been about 5,000 or 6,000 miles of travel, and then we do lots of investigations. But we also interview witnesses, talk to experts on it, go to historical archives, go to the museums, go to the newspapers, to find the original stories and try to get what really happened and the historical context of it. And then that's when we put our books together, is what's left from that. And now we're working on a TV program with a local network down here called WeBeam TV. It's actually an internet network. But they're putting together a show called Eerie Travels based on our books. And we're hosting that. And with that, we've started revisiting these places we've done, years ago for Eerie, Florida and Freaky Florida, and we're getting refreshes of them. So we're learning new things that have happened since, or things that have been uncovered since we did the books. And that's been a delight to work on. But of course, now with everything shut down, it was supposed to premiere in August, and because everything's been shut down, it's we're actually not starting filming again until August. And it'll be out sometime next year, so, or maybe later this year if we're lucky.
So let me ask you this. So, we'll break these down into some categories here. So,
yeah.
What is your favorite? Let's just go with the skunk ape. What's your favorite Bigfoot, skunk ape, cryptid story that you've heard and written about? And then what is your favorite, like, what investigation then, maybe totally separate, did you go on for skunk ape or cryptid that you yourself became? I mean, I don't know if you're a believer or not. I mean, that maybe you found something, saw something, heard something that made you a believer.
Okay, we were in Mayaca State Park. Now, it's a little south. That's a little south of Tampa Bay, a little south of Sarasota, and it is one of the big dark spots on the map, we like to call it. If the best way we like to describe things is if you look at Florida from space, and those wonderful images from the space station and stuff like that, at night, you see all these lights on the beach. Florida is lit up. All the beaches are lit up. And then it goes a little further inland, and you see these really bright sections, and those are the cities that support the beaches. So that's like Jacksonville, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, the St. Pete, Tampa. That you see the beach cities. And then you go a little further inland, and it starts getting a little darker, and there's less and less lights, and that's all the suburbs and the sprawl, right, that support all the big cities. And then you go a little further inland, and then there are big hunks of darkness where there's nothing. And then in the center of the state, you see Disney and all the tourist stuff, right? But those big hunks of darkness, the Everglades, with maybe a few sprinkles of lights here and there from some settlements and some of the reservations. Then the Ocala National Forest is completely dark. Again, with a few farms and stuff out there, and it's huge. And then one of the largest national forests in the country. Most people don't even know it's right here in the heart of Florida.
Really? That's what's fascinating is I think people that go to Florida don't understand how desolate some places are in Florida.
Yeah. 10 miles out of any city. Yeah, 10 miles out of any of those supporting cities, you are in the middle of nowhere. That's why they film Jeepers Creepers here. There's a reason. There's
great trilogy of movies. A great trilogy.
There's the Green Swamp, which is the home of our aquifer, which is the water supply for 90% of Florida. Again, just nothing but swampland and forest. And then we've got a couple other forests here and there. Now, Mayaca State Forest goes along the Mayaca River, and it is pretty big. And again, another dark spot on the map. And there's a trail that goes through a lot of it, and there's some other trails that go off of it. And we were there for an event. Stacy Brown from Finding Bigfoot was hosting just a nice little. He had a bunch of people around to host kind of a fun little paranormal con out in this wooded area, and there's a old historical city next to it, so they were doing ghost hunts in that. He was leading people out on Bigfoot hunts, and it was just a nice camp out weekend, right? Everybody could just go out there and spend the weekend camping, and we were out there. And we were talking some Florida legends, and I was telling ghost stories by the fire, my favorite thing to do. And the next day, everybody packed up and left. And I had an extra day, and I was like, Stacy, show me some of your stuff. We're just, we're here. We both got a day off. Let's go walk around. And so he leads us out deeper into the forest and off the trails and we go way out to the Myakka River. And as we're just walking along, we find in the mud footprints. And it's legit footprints. It's the big footprints. And then there's like little ones. So it was like a family had been out here. Now there was no reason for those to, if Stacy had thought about setting those up or something to fool me, why would they have been there? Well, he didn't know I was going to ask him to take me for a walk the next day.
And you're so far out that there's, even if somebody else is out there, why are they walking barefoot?
Why are they walking barefoot in the middle of nowhere? And then I tried to set my foot. Now, I'm a big guy. I'm 280 pounds. And I'm trying to set my foot into the sand, into the mud where these other prints are. And my foot doesn't even go down half as deep as these guys' did. And he's like, man, I don't have any of my casting stuff. I don't have anything. We're in the middle of nowhere. So we took some pictures. Because we had our phones, but that's the best we got, right? So we go back, and he's going to go get his casting stuff, right? So he's going to drive, and he's going to come back the next day to cast. The very next day, Florida has a controlled burn in that area to prevent forest fires.
Oh, why? No.
It was not listed. It was not controlled. It was not posted or anything ahead of time. So then the conspiracy theorist in me goes, okay, so who are they protecting? Are
they protecting you or the creatures?
Are they protecting them? Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Ocala National Forest is where we have tons of sightings. There's a great group called the Bigfoot guys out of Ocala. They're right in the middle of that. And they have sightings reported to them nearly every week. That's how often stuff goes on out there. And now they host a tour out there, so they'll take you out in the woods and show you the spots. They took us to where the original Boy Scout encounter happened many, many, many years ago in the 50s, where several Boy Scouts, 3 that we were able to talk to later that had grown up, and we're still willing to talk about it. They were out there, and their camp got attacked by what they thought were Bigfoot or Sasquatch.
Now wait a second. There's a Boy Scout. How come that story's not more well known? I've never heard of it.
Exactly. This one even has police involvement. Well, and
okay.
So the police go out.
Now you're going to have to tell this story.
Yep. And that's exactly what happened. Is these kids are out camping in the Ocala National Forest as part of their Boy Scout training. Something attacks their camp. They think it's a bear at first, but then the bear picks up a stick and starts swinging it and throwing stuff. So they panic and run, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they finally get to the ranger station, and running in the woods, my gosh, man, that's dumb enough, and especially in Florida woods. There's enough here that wants to kill you anyway. They get out there, and they get to the ranger station. Ranger station calls the cops. Cops come out there. Cops immediately think, okay, yeah, it's a bear attack. But then they find strange signs to show it wasn't a bear. Like, so things are opened, things are gone through. So they actually investigate it. It's never determined what actually attacked them. And we finally got to talk to the kids who had all grown up now. And they were, the surviving witnesses, and they were telling us, it was the scariest night of their life. They won't go back into the woods. Most of them, it was not a bear. It was on 2 feet, and it was, bears can get on 2 feet. Bears can do all this. Bears can, open things, but. You got to take it with healthy skepticism, but I've seen enough to know there's stuff out there.
Let me ask this real quick, and maybe you know this answer, maybe you don't. For our Ohio listeners who are familiar with the description of what Bigfoot, size, hair color, stuff like that, is there a difference between the Florida skunk ape and, say, the Ohio grass man or the Tennessee wild man from a descriptive standpoint.
It's funny you bring it up because like our next project is actually out of Florida. We're working on the book that's coming out next year is called Eerie Appalachia. It was supposed to be out this year because we started an investigation down here in Florida, and it led us to a tie to the Mothman legend in West Virginia, which tied to something else, which tied to something else, and all these things, and it all tied us back up to Ohio and my stomping grounds in Ohio, Kentucky, and West Virginia. So I'm like, all right, I got to get back up there. So that's our next project. But, so yes, I've been researching Grassman a little bit, been talking with some of the experts up there, and so yeah, there is a difference. The Florida has what we think are like 3 different style of Sasquatch down here. The ones down in the Everglades tend to be a little shyer. They tend to be more orange in coloring, and lankier and taller and thinner and more almost orangutan looking. Mm-hmm. And then you get to the Mayaca level area, and they're more black, gray, and almost silverback, almost more gorilla-like. And then you get up into Ocala and the Ocala National Forest, and those tend to be classic, more, just the large brown, what you expect of a skunk ape or Bigfoot. And but they seem to be a bit more aggressive because there's more attacks out there and more things that, they may be more territorial because they don't really seem to attack outright, but they do seem to defend themselves quite a bit. But then you get further north up into the Panhandle, and that's where it kind of blends, where you kind of get a little mix of everything, but you also start getting, more recently, and even older, you get more of the, even dogmen sightings up in that area. And those are the ones that seem to be a bit scarier, where everybody's like, these things actually eat, a little more than berries. And, some hunters have been scared up there. So.
Well, let me ask you this, Mark. In all so you've done obviously a lot of research and talked to a lot of people, and what you're describing, the differences in the ones that are the furthest south and then sort of the middle, that almost look like you said orangutan and gorilla type silverback characteristics. I mean, Florida was like the staging area for a lot of the circuses, a lot of animal sideshow acts. I mean, that was the best thing about old Florida, was going down the middle of the state and having all those little, kitschy kind of, gets to,
down US 1 or down Route 64. Heck yeah.
So have you ever run across like where maybe there was an animal escape and some of those animals maybe escaped and were not all recovered, to where if there was a regular, what we would call regular Bigfoot, I mean, is that silly to say? Yeah. But a regular Bigfoot may have intermingled with a gorilla or orangutan, and
that is a common theory, and it has some credence because, as I said, Florida wants to kill you. There's a great when you go visit the Ocala National Forest, you have to watch out for coral snakes. That's big bad. Black bears. We have a very large black bear population. We have a very large, just bear population in general out there. There's actually a naval bombing range that is active in the middle of the Ocala National Forest. They have to close parts of it where they actually drop bombs.
And you haven't even
in the middle of it.
You haven't even mentioned alligators or the creature from the Black Lagoon yet.
I'm working my way down on the ones that'll kill you the most, right? So
now the creature from the Black Lagoon is more Amazonian.
Well,
So you got.
Yeah, but the creature from the Black Lagoon was filmed in Silver Springs,
which is just a short distance from Ocala, and
exactly.
Very clear waters, and it's we go there quite often. Riku Browning, who was the original creature. He still lives in the area, so we see him occasionally.
No way! Does he really?
Yeah, he was the Olympic diver. He was one of the Weeki-Wachi mermaids. Which is
that's a great place too. Oh my god!
Yeah, that's how he learned he could breathe through the hose, and and that's what they would do. They would do it at a mermaid show. For those who don't know Weeki-Wachi, it was a tacky tourist thing on the Gulf Coast, a little north of Tampa, and you would go there, and it was a deep, deep springs. They still don't really know how deep these springs go, and they built an underwater theater. And you could go there, and these girls would swim around, and they still do. And they swim around under the water, and they have these breathing hoses, little oxygen hoses, and they just go behind the rocks, suck up some oxygen, and then come out and smile. And they would tell stories. They would reenact fairy tales and stuff like that. And one of the trainers was Riku Browning, who drew the attention of the Hollywood producers, who said, "Hey, let's put you in this green suit." And he's actually the guy who swims and does all the underwater stuff for all the creature movies. And he's the one who did all that work underwater. There was a different guy who did it above ground, but he was the guy who did all the underwater shots.
Nice.
Of the creature in the Black Lagoon, and that's how he did it. That's why there's no tank on his back. He did that. He was an Olympic swimmer. Super nice guy, and if you get a chance to see him, definitely go to some convention when conventions are a thing again, and say hi.
I can't wait.
But. Where was I? Oh yeah,
back to what we were talking about. Bigfoot crossbreeding of species is what we were talking about.
Yeah, it's rabbit trail there. Yeah. So anyway, so you go down the list of things trying to kill you: alligators, as we said, snakes. The Florida panther is making a comeback, and all these other things. Then there is one particular thing. Now, again, Florida loved. We were trying to be the Hollywood of the South, and Tarzan was filmed in Silver Springs, which we were just discussing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yep.
And who did Tarzan have with him? A lot of animals, but he also had cheetah, right?
Yeah.
So cheetah was the chimp. He had they were rhesus monkeys, and they had several of them, so that they could have different stunt ones and everything like that. And at the end, when they stopped filming the show, they left them on an island in the middle of the river.
Yep.
And just left them there and said, okay, they'll be on this island. No one will ever bother them. They'll be fine. Well,
not knowing
Florida,
they could swim, right?
That wasn't the problem. The problem was that Florida has dry spells, and the river dropped to nothing, and the monkeys escaped. And they were mating pairs. So they have expanded and expanded and expanded, and are now no longer afraid of people and will actually attack people. If you can Google up videos of people being attacked by these monkeys. And the other problem is these monkeys have a herpes that is deadly to humans. So. Oh my. So yes, you want to avoid Bigfoot, you want to avoid coral, but you got to be wary of herpes-infected monkeys that want to kill you.
So in other words,
but
Florida's our version of Australia.
Yeah.
But the scariest thing to me though down there is the palmetto bugs.
Oh, yeah.
AKA giant cockroaches.
Yeah. Between our palmetto bugs and our mosquitoes, that is Florida's deadliest creature is the mosquito. So
I gotta be
honest. God.
I gotta be honest.
Our mosquitoes are used to eating guys filled with meth and bath salts. So when the murder hornets arrive, that's why you don't hear about the murder hornets. Our mosquitoes got them.
Well, from my time in Florida with my grandparents, the scariest thing was being on the road with all those old people. No offense to old people, but that was man, because my grandparents lived in Ruskin. They had a place in Ruskin.
Oh yeah.
And it was always fascinating to me. Just down the road was, I can't remember the name of the town, but when you said Florida was trying to be the Hollywood, there was a place with what the heck was the name of that town? But they had an old movie studio there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just down the road, and then down the road was the place where they, all the circus people would come for the Sun City. Was it Sun City Center? Maybe
Sun City Center, and then Gibsonton was the
right.
town with all the circus folk.
Yeah, and so Sun City Center, we'd go through there because you'd go down to Sarasota and you'd be like, that used to be a movie studio, and you're like, yep. This place used to be a movie studio.
It's pretty crazy.
It was always fascinating. I mean, old Florida, and it wasn't really that old, but old Florida just was so great and kitschy and just cool, But it was all tourists. It was to draw people down for sure.
Oh yeah. No, that's 100%. It was because Ringling moved down here. He fell in love with Sarasota Bay, and built his winter home down here. And that goes back to Henry Plant and his train line coming down. He was trying to get the trains to Miami. And so he was drawing all his rich friends down to Florida. Look how beautiful Florida is. Why are you living up here in the snow? Come down here. And it was basically because he was just trying to sell land and get his trains going. And but then Ringling moved down here, and then so suddenly every circus performer in the world migrated to Florida because, hey, I might get picked up by Ringling and make millions like Tom Thumb. I'm a tiny guy, or I'm a big guy or whatever, and I have an unusual talent. And of course, all these other circuses would show up and say, well, we're going to get their cast-offs. We may not have the smallest guy in the world, but we'll have one that's damn close. And no one will care. We'll get Lobster Boy. We'll get somebody who looks like a chicken. Yep. And then sure enough, that all lived there in Gibsonton for a long time. Only recently did the last ones move away and all that, but it's still, that town's got that, that story. And we've got, and that's what happened with a lot of these folk tales and things that people spotted. Early on, people didn't report them because they were like, "Oh, it's just some circus performer," and so we didn't. We won't report that. And then we had one that we thought, the one that kind of made us and made that Coast to Coast AM fell in love with was we had in Eerie, Florida. We had a story near Bach Tower. Now, for those who don't know Bach Tower is on a place called Iron Mountain in Florida. Iron Mountain is supposedly has mysterious properties, like it was made because a meteor crashed into Florida. There's all these other legends about it, history about it. It's just a rise in the middle of Florida, and it's one of the highest points in Florida, at a whopping 223 feet above sea level.
Oh, for crying out loud! That's barely. I mean, that's not even Amish country would just laugh at you if you.
Yeah, Space Mountain is bigger than this. Yeah, but this guy, he built a giant Carillon tower and made these beautiful gardens around it. And for miles around, he decided he wanted to preserve it because all these orange groves were being planted all around the area, and he wanted to make a nice little quiet place in the middle. And he did, and it's a tourist attraction. And the whole town has this weird vibe, though, because, like I said, it's got some unusual properties. When you do go there, you sometimes lose a GPS signal. You do go there, you can lose, you can get a lot of weird things happen. There's a gravity hill there. Are you guys familiar with gravity hills, where it's an optical illusion, makes it look like something weird? They call it Spook Hill. It's about 2 miles from it. And it has a legend of an Indian chief fighting an alligator, and that's why you're being drawn into the, uphill, backwards. You park at the base of a hill, you kick your car in neutral, and you roll backwards uphill.
Yes.
And so, there's an elementary school right next to it that they call Spook Hill Elementary. That's how much this town embraces it. And Casper the Friendly Ghost is their school mascot, which I love. The thing that gets me is when you watch a kid chasing a ball uphill, that'll get you.
Isn't that like a Far Side? Shouldn't that be like a Far Side cartoon?
Like, exactly, right? Yeah. But this lady sent us an email during the Hellview days, and I just had a little email on our website that said, "Send me your stories. We want more stories." And this will tell you a little bit about the dating of this. It was a GeoCities website initially, and for those internet archivists, and it was an AOL address, I think we were using at the time.
Oh boy. Okay.
Yeah. So, when after Hellview had died and we were starting to work on Eerie, I found her email and I was like, all right, I remember this crazy email. We got to go dig for it. And I found the hard drive that had it and pulled it up, and my wife and I were like, this is insane. We'll never be able to get confirmation of this. So we reached out to the lady, and sadly she had passed on because it had been 15 years since I got the original email. So I'm like, well, I guess we're never going to investigate this story. But then I reached out on this wonderful thing called Facebook, and went to, the group, You Knew You Grew Up in Lake Wales When? And I reached out and said, hey, has anybody ever heard of this weird story? And sure enough, I got a civilian employee of the local police department who was able to verify that they remembered when this happened. So I was like, oh, I can publish this. So here's the story. 1940s, this lady at the time, she was, not a little old lady at this point, she was a little girl, and she lived out on one of those orange groves in the shadow of Bach Tower, so she could see it from her farm.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time that we have for this week's episode. But tune in next week, where Mark Muncy will continue on this story. Not to give anything away, but it's going to get really exciting. So don't miss it. Tune in next week to find out the conclusion of this current story and to see what other amazing discoveries that Mark has to share with you, our listening audience. See you next week, folks. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out. Ha 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 ha.